All right, day one of e-learning here. Today we're going to be talking about radicals. Main thing to understand about all of this is I want you to get what you can out of the notes. The questions I'm going to do 5 notes questions that should match up with the first 5 questions on the homework assignment, which will also count for your attendance. So if you take good notes on this should help you for the assignment, and hopefully it'll match up pretty well, and hopefully we develop an understanding that whenever it is that we get back to school, we can kind of review this and help you guys out there, okay? First thing, here we go. So radicals are a square root sign. That's what a radical is when we talk about that. You probably have seen it on your calculator, or known as the square root of 16 is equal to 4. All right, now this one's not our first example. I'm just giving you hopefully a review. But the reason we do this is if we took 16, if we have a match where we have 4 times 4, right? Any square root times itself will be a perfect square. So we're looking for matches because in this, a square root of a match will turn into just a 4, okay? So anything that's left over stays under the radical. You'll see what I mean here in a second, all right? So again, we're looking for matches off of the factor tree. So for 56, first thing we can think of, a lot of times students want to use a 2, which is fine. You can also use 8 times 7. That pops in my head right away. But it's really up to you, okay? As long as there are 2 factors that multiply to that number. So if we keep the radical sign and we use 8 times 7, right? No matches so far, but 8 we can keep going with. 7 is prime, so it's just going to stay out there. So for 8, I go 4 times 2, and I bring down the 7. Now again, these are still under the radical. And again, I'm still looking for matches. All of these are equal. All right, so finally, we get to here. With this 4 becomes a 2 and a 2. We have another 2, and we have a 7. All right, so now like I was saying, if we find a match, if we find things that match up, that is going to be the square root of 4. 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 4 is just 2. So if we find a match, it's going to turn into a non-radical because it's just a whole number. Now these left over, we don't want to write them separately, so we just write them under one radical as 2 radical 14, and this would be our answer. Okay? All right, and again, if there's questions, feel free to email me or send me a message through Canvas. So there's number 1. You can always pause it and try to come back to it. All right, let's go to number 2. Okay, for number 2, we're going to multiply a couple radicals together. 4 radical 6 times 3 radical 14. Okay, so this time we have 2 things we're multiplying together. So when you're multiplying, you can multiply in any order you want. So I'm going to take the 4 and the 3 out of here first and take 4 times 3. That's going to be 12. Okay, so I start off with that. Now under the radical, I still have a 6 and I have a 14. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine that all under one radical. Now for 6, I can break that down into a 2 times a 3. Okay, and 14, I can break that into, so if that became 2 and 3, a 14 can become 2 times a 7. So I have all of that under the radical. Right, and so remember, again, we're looking for matches with the radicals because that creates a perfect square. So the 2's will be radical 2, radical 2. If I were to put that over here, that's equal to the square root of 4, which the square root of 4 is 2. So these 2 are going to move out here, and that becomes a 2 outside because that is a perfect square. Right, that's what the matches create. Now under the radical, we still have a 3 and a 7. So what we do is take that 3 times the 7. There's no matches. So our final answer here ends up being 12 times 2 is 24. Radical 3 times the 7 is 21. So that would be my final answer there. Okay? All right. So that is number 2. And that one can be tough. Main things to hang in there, multiply the first 2 first. Separate these, just put it all under one radical. Look for the matches, and then multiply the things you can. Okay? All right, number 3, keep things moving here, is radical with variables. So this time we got x to the 6th under the radical, and we got x to the 10th, sorry. X to the 10th, y to the 13th. Okay, so we have talked about this a little bit before. But anyhow, when we take the square root of something, of an exponent, or sorry, take the square root with a variable, that our rule is that we take half of the exponent. So for x to the 10th is going to turn into x to the 5th. So as long as it's even, we have a perfect square. So x to the 10th, the square root, turns into, so if I'm going to put that part over here just to show you, if we were to isolate just the x, that would be square root of x to the 10th. We take half of whatever that number is, so we get x to the 5th. So that's where this comes from. Now the y is a little bit more complicated, okay, because we can't take half of that, we'll get a decimal for an exponent. So we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do, whatever this odd number is, to get to an even number, we're going to go down by one exponent, okay, or one number, sorry. So we're going to keep this part under the radical, and it's going to be y to the 12th times y to the 1st, which is really y. Okay, so now we're left with just the x to the 5th, and then the square root of y to the 12th is going to become y to the 6th. This one is left over. We can't take the square root of y to the 1st, so we keep it radical y. And this would be my answer for that one. X to the 5th, y to the 6th, radical y. All right, so like I've said, I've mentioned it a couple times, but if you're stuck, pause it, try to come back to this. If there's things that don't make sense, feel free to send me a message on Canvas tomorrow. And my office hours are 10 to 1, but you can really send a message anytime, and I'll try to get back to you. All right, keep it moving here. Number 4. This time we have 5 radical 49 x to the 5th. Okay, so one more time with simplifying radicals, we're going to keep the 5 out here. Okay, 49. So we look for factors of 49. We've got 7 and 7. Some of you might know 49 is a perfect square, right? So that's going to match up. So this is going to become 5 times the 7. Now under the radical, we can't take half of 5. Well, we can, but we get a decimal, and so that's not going to work for exponents. So our exponent rule is that when we're taking the square root, we take half. So we need to get to an even number. So we're going to make this 1 down x to the 4th, but you still have to account for that 1 you went down. So that's where that comes from. So this will be a perfect square of x squared. Half of 4 is 2. And then we have this left over. So my final answer, 5 times the 7 is 35. X squared radical x. So a lot of the same concepts we did on number 3. Just now we also had the 5 out here that we had to multiply to go to simplify the radical. Okay? All right, last one. Number 5, and actually number 5 is probably the fastest one. So number 5 is going to go back to a concept that we did all the way back with combining like terms. So if we have 11 radical 3 plus 8 radical 3. So under the radicals, we can't simplify any more of that right now. Now we may mix in some of these later to work more on this, but for today, this is all we're going to do. All right, this is the same concept as if we had 11x plus 8x. Most of you would probably know what to do here. Same concept, just instead of an x, we have radical 3. So with 11x plus 8x, about lost it there. That would be 19x. Okay? And then 11 radical 3 plus 8 radical 3, because it's the same concept. So radical 3 is going to stay the same. That's like your label. Like 11x plus 8x, the x is the label. Here the radical 3 is the label. So 11 plus the 8 is 19 radical 3. Okay? So maybe we need to screw that into the wall or make it a little more sturdy for the next time. But anyhow, that is number 5. Again, you just combine the like terms, keep the radical 3's the same. Okay? Do your best on the 5 questions, and that'll wrap things up for today. Hopefully we'll try to streamline this and keep it as short as possible, but also get you guys the information. So Stay safe out there. Stay inside and get out to exercise a little bit, but keep to yourselves. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.